Hey everybody, today in this video, we're gonna make sandwich bread from fresh meal flour using our new grain meal. I cannot wait to show you this process. I cannot wait to show you the end product. It's gonna be so good, so yummy. And so if this is your first time landing on my page, my name is Barbara. I live in Tennessee, in Zone 7B, and I just got a grain mill about 3 months ago. And so I have been testing out some recipes, and now I finally feel confident enough to show you me using my grain mill for not the first time, but the first few times. I've kind of gotten it down pat, specifically on this recipe. So if you're brand new to fresh meal flour, let me just kind of go over a few things up front. I'm going to show you the cookbook that I'm using. I'm going to link the recipe that I'm using, all the things. Now, if you are a bread maker, then this recipe is not going to be vastly different than any traditional bread recipe. It's going to be flour, it's going to be water, it's going to be salt, it's going to be some type of sweetener, honey or sugar. So the components are primarily the same. The thing that we're adding in different is using fresh meal flour versus store-bought flour from the store. And because of that, and because we're using fresh meal flour, then there's going to be some differences in the process. But in terms of making bread, it's not like we're using ingredients that you wouldn't normally use to make bread. So let me just say that off the beginning. Now, if you don't have a grain mill, you can still make fresh bread. You would just use a different process, different recipe, and all of that. But if you're interested in getting a grain mill, or maybe you have a grain mill and you don't have a good sandwich bread recipe, then this will be a perfect video for you. So I've had my grain mill now for about 3 months. I have been using it on a repeat, and I would say I've had mostly successes, but I did have some failures. I had did a video probably a couple of months ago on this very recipe, and the day that I did that was a flop. So needless to say, I had to go back to the drawing board. But before that, I had made it successfully, but something happened that day that it did not go well. And so one of the things is, on this channel, I like to show you my successes, my failures, and my whole journey. For this particular video, I wanted to make sure that I had made bread successfully, because I want this to be a resource for you to come back to if you get your grain mill for the first time, if you've never done sandwich bread with your grain mill, that you can come back to this video and watch step by step on how to do it. I didn't necessarily want the video to be a learning with me as I go, so to speak, and the bread not turn out, if that makes sense. And so this is more of a, let me show you the grain mill, let me show you what to do, because I was looking for videos like this as I was trying to learn my grain mill. So I want to add it out to YouTube University, that this will be a great resource for somebody looking to make sandwich bread with their grain mill. Now, let's talk about my grain mill. I have the grain mill from Nutri-Mill. It's the Harvest grain mill. It is in the bamboo color. Now, I am an affiliate for Nutri-Mill, but I was not an affiliate when I actually bought my grain mill. But if you want to get $20 off the grain mill or any Nutri-Mill product like the Bosch mixer, the Magi Mix mixer, then you can use my code LFF for an extra $20 off. Now, let's talk about this grain mill. I have been wanting a grain mill for probably about a year or so before I actually pulled the trigger, because it's quite an investment. And I actually have a grain mill that I don't use. I've had it for about 3 or 4 years. And the reason why I don't use it is because it's kind of cumbersome to use and to pull out, because it's one that has to attach to the counter, and there's only one place in my kitchen where it can attach, which is not very convenient. So because of that, I don't use it, okay. So I'm like, okay, am I going to use a grain mill if I get a new one? The other thing about my other grain mill, the reason why I have kept it, is because it has an electric option and a manual option. So I want to keep it in case, let's say, the power goes out and I need to make some fresh meal flour. I like the fact that I have a grain mill that has a manual option. So therefore, it'll stay up under my counter. But this right here, I absolutely love. And let me tell you, I do use it. Like I said, it's quite an investment. And so definitely it's not something that you want to take lightly. But if you're interested in taking your bread making to the next level and increasing the nutritional value of the things that you and your family are eating, I cannot stress highly enough about the grain mill. So let's go ahead and get in, and then what I will do throughout the video as the bread is making, as we're going through some of the voiceover, I'm gonna share more about the benefits of fresh mill flour. I'm gonna share more about the benefits of using the grain mill and all of that. But let's go ahead and jump in and get started, and then we can kind of talk as we go, as we make the bread, okay? So the first thing that we're gonna do, let me show you the recipe that I'm using in the cookbook. So the cookbook I'm using is Fresh Milled Flour Cookbook by Kara Britch. This is in my Amazon shop. She is also on YouTube under Grains in Small Places. One of the things that I love about this book, and I have a couple of fresh mill flour books and I like them for different reasons, but one of the things that I love about her cookbook is that one, she has pictures, so you know what you're going, what you're aiming for. But she also has a QR code on every page. So when you hover over the QR code with your phone camera, it'll take you to the video of her actually making the product, which I think is nice. And let me tell you, I had to go watch this video over and over the first time that I was making it, just to say, okay, is my consistency right? Am I doing it right? And just kind of to check and to validate. So that's a very, very plus. Now, if you don't want to buy the cookbook, you can just go to her website, watch her video. But for me, I like having the cookbook because I got all recipes in one place. And it makes it easier for me to be able to have something physical that I can look at and have on the counter. The other thing I like about her cookbooks, particularly for this recipe, is that, I don't know if you can see, but she has 3 different, not recipes, but 3 different variations depending on what size loaf pans you have. Loaf pans, a standard size, I think is 4.5 by 8.5. That's like a standard loaf size, but you have some other loaf sizes that are 4 by 8 or some that are 5 by 9. Now, y'all, I did not know that until I got this book, that there were different sizes and that I didn't ever pay attention to that mattered. So I like the fact that she gives you the different measurements for the size loaf pans that you have. And what I found out the first time I made this is that I did not have 2 of the same. I had 1 of each size. And so I had to kind of go back and buy another one of each size. So anyway, those are the things that I love about it. So let's just jump right in. So one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to actually weigh out our grain. And so for the grain that we're using for this today is hard white wheat berries. I got my wheat berries from, I've gotten some from Amazon, and which is the Palouse brand, Palouse. And I've also gotten some from Azure Standard as well. So we're going to use hard white wheat berries, and we have our scale, and we're just going to weigh out. And so for this recipe, I'm using for the medium bread pan size, and so we need 728 grams of wheat berries. Now you can mix your flour. On this recipe, she suggests using hard white wheat and commute. I've just been doing hard white wheat because I kind of want to nail that down, make sure we like the taste, the flavor, and get a product that we absolutely love. And then I will venture into adding the other grains. So for today's purposes, we're just going to do the hard white wheat berries, and we're going to measure out 728 grams. Okay, that's 732 grams. That's 4 grams over. We're gonna call that good. Okay, and so I have, as you can see, I have my jars labeled. So I have hard white wheat berries. I have soft white wheat berries. We use that for like biscuits and things that, you know, like pastries and things like that. I have some commute, and then I have some spelt. I also have some einkorn. I just don't have that out. So this is our grain meal. It's pretty simple and easy to use. Now, it does have some noise to it, so I'm going to voice over some of this once it gets to the point of me actually turning it on. But just to kind of update you on what it looks like, there is a button right here on the side. You use that to turn it on. Once it comes on, you can hear that. And you have an adjustable knob up here. You want to turn it until you start to hear the stones grind, because there's stones on the inside. That noise right there. So that's the noise that you want to hear for the stones to grind. This knob is helps you to adjust it from coarse to fine flour. But let's just go ahead. I'm gonna put a bowl here. Don't forget that part to catch the flour. And here we go. So as you can see, it's not that noisy, but let me tell you something. This is so empowering. The first time I did this, it was just like mind blowing. I'm like, I put wheat berries and I'm making my own flour. Like, y'all, come on. This is amazing. Okay, so here's our fresh milled flour. Looks good. Looks just like regular flour, except it's way more nutritious, has way more fiber, and all the things. And so we're gonna get ready to make our bread. So the part that you didn't see was it asked me to do water, milk, and butter, and to put them like in a microwave bowl or do it on top of the stove so the butter melts and gets to like a lukewarm or warm temperature. So I did that earlier. It's warm. This is just, again, butter, water, and milk. Like I said, I'll link the recipe down below so you can see which measurements you need depending on what size pan you have. But I'm just gonna pour this into my Bosch mixer. I am using my Bosch mixer, which is also another product from Nutrimil. Again, I bought this. I've had my Bosch for about a year now, and I absolutely love it. I don't really even use my KitchenAid anymore because it's just so much more powerful as well. And you can also use my code LFF to get $20 off of the Bosch mixer. So we've added in the butter, the water, and the milk. And then so next we're gonna add in our sugar, egg, and salt. So let me show you what we're gonna do for that. So you can use either sugar or honey. I decided to use honey just because that's what I prefer, and that was easier. It's like 94 grams of sugar, of honey. And so I'm gonna put that in there. One of the things is that I always try to spray my dish with some avocado oil spray so that the honey just comes all the way out and I don't have to fight with it. So that works out really, really well. And then we need salt. We need, for this particular size pan, we need 2 1/4 teaspoons of salt. So we're gonna add that. Okay, and then it calls for 1 egg for the size pan that I have. But in place of egg, I'm actually gonna use a product called, sunflower lecithin. And so lecithin, if you're not familiar with it, it can be used as a leavening agent. You could also use wheat germ, if I'm not mistaken. I've never used that before, but I've tried this and it turns out great. So it's gonna give it the same lift as an egg would. It's gonna give it the same like texture as an egg would. And so if you are plant-based and you don't do egg, this is a great option. And so again, I'm gonna substitute 2 tablespoons of lecithin for the egg. And so I have that. Here is just a powder. You can also buy liquid lecithin as well. And this I just got off Amazon. So this is 2 tablespoons of lecithin, and I'm gonna add a little bit of oil to it. And that's just, I don't know if you wanna call it hydrate, but kind of just to hydrate. I read that somewhere. It worked out great. So that's what we're gonna do. Okay, and so we're gonna add that in. So that it gets, and then we're just gonna mix this together. You're just gonna mix this for like maybe 1 or 2 minutes. It's just to combine all the ingredients together before we put the flour on there. So in my Bosch mixer, I have it on the speed of 2 in literally less than a minute, and it's all good to go and it's all incorporated. So then next we're gonna add in the flour. And then now we're just gonna add our flour mixture. And I'm gonna have my Bosch mixer on too for this. So also at this step, we are just getting the flour incorporated. And again, this may take 1 or 2 minutes tops. We're not kneading, we're not doing the dough any longer than that. It's just until you don't see any dry bits of flour left. Again, in my box mixture on the level 2, this usually happens in roughly, I would say, 90 seconds or less. And then I'll tell you what we're going to do in the next step. You can see what it looks like here. So it's going to be like a shaggy dough, just again, incorporated, not smooth, not kneaded. Okay, so all of it's mixed in. You see, I just let it mix for like maybe a minute or so until all the dry flour was absorbed. Now, keep in mind at this point, we have not added yeast. We're not going to add yeast until later. So that's one difference when you're working with a fresh meal recipe for sandwich bread versus a regular recipe of sandwich bread. The other thing that's going to be different is that right now we're going to let this sit. So before we do any kneading and all that, and the reason why is because we need the fresh meal flour to be absorbed into what they call hydrate. And so keep in mind and remember that fresh meal flour has the 3 parts. It has the bran, the germ, and the endosperm versus what you buy in the store, King Arthur, Bob's Red Mill, like whatever conventional flour you buy from the store, the bran has been removed. Number one, that's how it can stay on the shelf. Otherwise, it would go rancid, right? That's also the reason with the bran being removed why it is less nutritious than fresh meal flour. But because it has the bran in it and we just milled it, it has to break down that outer shell or the bran, and you do that by letting it sit and letting it hydrate. So this is a very important step. You cannot do this and then go on to kneading. And so the instructions say on everything that I've read, it says 15 minutes up to 2 hours. My sweet spot, usually I let it do it at least 45 minutes, but I have done it before where it's been 2 hours. But I'm going to set a timer for 45 minutes, go do some work, come back, and then that's when we will add the yeast, and then that is when we will start kneading the dough. But you can see what it looks like right now. It's kind of just all mixed together. So one of the things that I do, because I've almost forgotten this, is that I go ahead and I put my top on. And then what I do, I can't find my yeast spoon right now, but I will just put a spoon up here. That's a reminder for me that I have not added my yeast, because it's very easy to come back in here after 45 minutes and just start kneading. And so this reminds me that the yeast has not been added. I saw that on Kara's video and I'm like, oh, that's for me. That is for me. I need to absolutely do that. So that's what I do. You do what works for you. So I'll meet you back here in about 45 minutes to an hour, and then we will start the next part of the process. Okay, y'all, we're back. So we're going to add in our yeast. This has been sitting for about 50 minutes. And so it should be well hydrated. Like I said, you can go up to 2 hours. I've done that before. I've done as little as 15 minutes. But when I did the 15 minutes, it seemed like it took a little bit longer in the kneading process than it already takes. And so usually I just plan about 45 minutes, and that usually works for me. It's not going to necessarily look materially different, except that you can tell it's a little puffy, but it's hydrated. And so now it's time to add in the yeast. You want to make sure that you don't forget this step. So it calls for 3 teaspoons of yeast for the pan size that I'm using. So keep in mind that your pan size matters. So I am going to link the recipe or her site where she, I think when I link it, it'll show you the 3 different recipe measurements for the 3 different size pans. So make sure that if you're not using the same size pans as me, which I'm using a 4.5 by 8.5, make sure that your measurements are correct. So it asks for 3 teaspoons of yeast, which is really just 1 tablespoon. We're going to put that in there, and then we're going to turn our Bosch mixer on 2. Now, if you don't have a Bosch mixer and you're using a KitchenAid, the KitchenAid is going to struggle a little bit. Not struggle, but it's not going to be as smooth sailing as the Bosch. Now, before I turn this on, this is another part that's a little different than when you're making regular bread with regular flour. The kneading process is going to take longer because, again, it is being hydrated and we're incorporating it. And so when you're doing fresh meal flour, the kneading does not come together just like this. So I would say in a normal bread recipe, my kneading time is usually around 6 to 8 minutes. With this, it can take up to 25 minutes. So that's very important. So what we're looking for at the end, just like you would with normal dough, is you're going to do what we call like a window pane test. You want to be able to pull your dough and be able to kind of clearly see through it like a window pane. That lets you know the dough has been kneaded enough. So we're going to turn this on. And I always just set my timer for 25 minutes. I'll come back and check it at 20 just to see if it's ready. But for me, the least amount it has ever taken is 20 minutes. It's never done it anything less than that. So keep in mind, if you think, oh my goodness, it's not coming together, it's not kneading, give it the 25 minutes as the recipe suggests. And I've used other recipes. It's the exact same thing. That's a part of fresh meal flour. So let's turn it on and let's get started on the kneading process. Okay, y'all, it's been 25 minutes and the dough, I can tell, probably needs to be kneaded some more. So it's not exactly where I want it to be, but also I can tell that it needs more flour because it's a little bit sticky. And because I've done it so much, not just with this, but just with regular bread dough, you want it to be a certain consistency. And this right here is kind of loose. I don't know if you can tell by that, but like when I pull it up, we're almost there at the window pane. So it just needs probably a few more minutes to knead, but I am going to add just a little bit of flour to get the texture right. Now, this again is no different than when you're making regular sandwich bread. A lot of times on sandwich bread recipes, it may say add between 7 to 8 cups. It's not exact because you want to watch the dough, not necessarily watch the measurements. And when I say that, meaning once you start working with bread dough, you know what it's supposed to feel like, especially when it comes to a sandwich bread dough. It should not be like real loose, soft, and sticky. It should be a little bit more firm, right? And so just like with a regular bread recipe, there is a range sometimes of how many cups of flour. You can apply the same logic to this because remember, when you're baking bread, a lot of factors come into play. The humidity in your house, the temperature in your house. And so sometimes you need to add more flour than less flour. Like when my house is much warmer, it's usually err on the side of less flour or just what the recipe calls. But today, my house is not as warm as it's been. I mean, we've been having the wood burning stove on. It's been cold outside. And today it's very pleasant. It's like 65 degrees. So that is probably affecting the way that the dough is reacting. So I'm going to add just a little bit more flour, not a whole lot, until I start to see the texture that I want. So we're going to turn it back on. So before I added the flour, the dough was like glossy, shiny, like it was more wet. Like you can tell here, now that I add the flour, you can tell that it's a little bit more dry, which is what you want your dough to be. So that's the reason why I added some more flour. So you can see after this, I'm going to let it knead for about 5 more minutes and then it's going to be ready to go. Go ahead. Okay, so when I say window pane, you can kind of see here, as I pull it, you can start to see the light coming through. That is what you call the window pane test. That lets me know that the dough is ready. So let me try and show you one more time. And this is the texture that I want. Even though it's a little sticky, that's fine. It's going to be fine after it rises. But again, let me show you. You want to pull up just with a couple of fingers and you can start to see. Now you got to be careful because if you pull it up too quick, it's just going to automatically break. But if you pull up like that, it's hard to see with this thing in it. Let me take this off. Now, do I always do this? No, I don't. Especially when I'm making regular flour, just because I've been doing it for a while, so I know what the texture is supposed to be like. And with regular flour, I know within 6 to 8 minutes it's done. But because fresh meal is still a new process, I just do it every time. So I'm pulling it up very slowly, and you can start to see through the dough, which is what they call the window pane. If for some reason it was not ready, it would just tear apart as soon as I pull it away. Okay, so now we're gonna just let this rise as normal, just like you would if you were using regular flour. And so typically it takes about an hour. I'll check it back in an hour, but I'm probably anticipating about an hour and a half just because my house is a little bit cooler today because the temperature outside is cooler, all the things. But we're just gonna let it hang out right here in the Bosch mixer bowl. I'll meet you back in an hour or so to check it. And then if it's risen the way that we want, then we will start to shape it and put it into our loaf pans for the second rise. But now let's just let it hang out for the first rise. Okay, so it's been about an hour and a half. I come and check my dough and it has risen and looks great. You can see how great it looks right there. So no issues with the rising at all. So I'm gonna take this out and put it on my pastry mat and we're gonna get ready to shape it into 2 loaves. So the recipes that I'm gonna link in the description are for 2 loaves. So even no matter what size pan recipe you use, they are both for 2 loaves. So I got my 2 loaf pans here. They're both the same size. There are 4.5 by 8.5, which is the medium pan size on her recipe. So it's the recipe that calls for the medium pan sizes. That's what I'm using. And then I'm going to get my bench scraper so that I can do this dough in half. Now, what I should do is weigh the dough, make sure that it's even in equal portions. But on this particular day, I did not do that. And most days I don't do that. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. Now, if I would have had a scale right there, then maybe I would have, but I just didn't even feel like going around to the other side of the kitchen to do it. That's just real talk. Also on this day is a few days before my daughter is getting ready to leave to move to Florida. And it was a busy day. It was a crazy day. And I want to say that at this time when I'm shaping the bread, movers have shown up to get her stuff. So there's a lot of chaos in the house, but I'm trying to get this step done because I don't want my bread to sit too long and get overproofed. But anyway, I shaped the loaves. There's so many different ways that you can shape bread loaves. And I'm not gonna say I use a different way every time, but I've used various different methods and I don't see any difference in how the loaves come out. But today I am just kind of making a square. I take the top and I fold it down. And then I kind of bring in the sides, almost like the shoulders, and bring it in to like make a V. And then I just roll it up. I have some fresh meal flour that's left over that I put on the pastry mat and on my hands, just because it's still a little bit sticky. Not an extreme amount, but they'll just make it easier for me to handle the dough. Obviously, you can always wet your hands as well. That does help with the process when it's a little bit sticky. So I get this one shaped. You want to try to provide some tension to the loaf. That's what helps with your gluten structure and the crumb of your bread. But once you get it the way you want it, I just plop it on into the pan. And it's okay if it doesn't fill up the entire pan to begin, because it is going to do the second rise and fill out the loaf pan. I just say that because I didn't know that when I was first making bread. And again, I try to think of all the things that I wish I would have known. And what are the things that I second guessed myself on, and I try to make sure that I share that information, because I don't want you in your kitchen frustrated when there's no reason to be frustrated. So here's the second loaf. Again, I kind of got it into a rectangle. I bring the first part down at the very top, and then you see me folding in the shoulders or the sides, and then we're just going to roll it up into a loaf. This one is a little long, but that's okay. We're going to keep tightening it up. Keep adding some tension to the dough until we get it the way that we want it. And then I roll it up again. And I'm going to pull it towards me just to kind of get a tight hold and a tight structure. And then we're going to put that also into the loaf pan. Okay, guys, it took only about 45 minutes for them to rise. I put them in the oven on 350 for 30 to 32 minutes, and they are done. Look at them. They are completely done. Now, I wanted to show you before I put it in the oven and show you how you can tell if your dough is proof, underproofed, or overproof. But I didn't get a chance to show you that just because it was so many people in my kitchen going in and out. I usually try to start these projects earlier in the day, but of course, bread spans some hours. And let me tell you, by the time I got to this step, people were up in the house, in and out of the kitchen. And so it was very hard to finish recording in a solo. So as soon as they come out of the oven, I'll go ahead and turn them onto a cooling rack. And I do the tops with butter just to kind of make the top crust a little bit softer. And then I go ahead and I actually wrap them in a bread towel or a regular towel. And I do that probably for the next 15-20 minutes. Okay, guys, the bread is all done. You can see here that I always put them in a towel. And what that does is it helps to keep the crust soft. And if you don't care about that, you don't have to do it that way. But I just always wrap them immediately in a towel, and it just helps it to stay soft all the way around. And of course, she told me to put butter on it. So you can see the loaf here, how good it looks. I had already cut one because I was trying to show my daughter something. But we'll, let's get a knife and I'll actually cut one with you and taste it. So we'll go ahead and just cut a slice. You can see the texture. The crumb looks good. You can see that there. So we're gonna put some butter on it and taste it. Now, when I was doing my loaves and I used my bench scraper to put them in half, I didn't weigh it. I never do. I just kind of eyeball it, but one was obviously bigger than another because one kind of rose a little higher, but that's okay. We don't care about that. So you can see it with the butter. Okay, y'all, I'm sorry you missed that whole thing because somebody came in the kitchen and I stopped recording and I forgot to hit the record button back. So let me cut one more piece. At this point, y'all, I've already had a piece of bread, so I'm cutting a real small piece. But let me just tell you, it's good. It's real good. Again, you can see the crumb. I'll put a little butter on it. It don't need it. And let me just take a bite with you. So good. So very, very good. Let me just say this. If you're not making your own homemade bread, I want you to put it on your list this year for 2026. Even if it's not fresh meal, I want you to make your own bread. There is a difference between homemade bread and store-bought bread. We were on vacation last month and we got some bread from the store, and I bought some sourdough bread from the store thinking, you know, okay, this is gonna be the best of the best. This is the best I can do. That bread, y'all, it was horrible. Okay, do you hear me? Horrible. Now, it did not come from the bakery. It came from just not off the shelf in the store, but it was a sourdough sourdough kind. It was bad, y'all. It was horrible. It had zero taste. We barely suffered through it. Barely. And that's been a while since I've had bread from the store. Like, it's been quite some time since I've had bread from the store. It's probably been some years, because ever since I started making my bread at home, we always just have homemade bread at home. I make bread usually every week or every 2 weeks. And so I never buy bread from the store. So it had been a while. I'm telling you, add that to your list for those who are just skeptical or who are nervous or just feel like you can't bake bread, like it feels like it's way up here. I felt that way too, but I can tell you, it's not. It's flour, water, salt, and, you know, a sweetener is usually what it is. So you can do it. Now, if you want to take it up a notch, get your grain meal and do you some fresh meal bread. But at the base level, homemade bread is better than store-bought bread. Then I would say homemade to sourdough, sourdough to fresh meal bread. It's a completely different taste profile. And let me just tell you, it is yummy, yummy good. So if you want to invest in a grain meal, I highly recommend the Harvest grain meal. Now, they are out of stock a lot. As soon as they come out, they sell the same day. And so if you're really serious about getting one, go to the website, nutrimill.com, go to where it says Harvest grain meal up at the top, and then put yourself on the notification list for when it's back in stock. If you don't care what color, then just put your name on every color. They will send you an email. They will send you a text. Once they send you that, if you want one, you better run, not walk, and go grab you one. Because again, it is a hot commodity. And so, look, I've had mine for 3 months and I use it quite a bit. If not every week, then every couple of weeks. So we make this bread on repeat, 2 loaves at a time. I've also made biscuits. And so I will share that as well in terms of the biscuit recipe that I've done. And then next on the list, I'm gonna go back to the sandwich bread, and then I'm gonna add in an additional grain so that I can get a different flavor profile, and I'll let you know how that turns out. And then after that, I wanna try English muffins. So I got a whole lineup, a whole list of stuff that I wanna try. I'm just getting my feet wet Definitely working with fresh mill flour is a learning curve. I kind of went through some of the things with you today about that's different, but it's not impossible. It's not something that you can't get, right? If you can read, you can get it, right? It's just a matter of reading, researching, doing what it says, and not second guessing yourself. But also, I think because I have been making bread, I have a certain level of insight, like we did earlier in the video. Like I'm like, okay, I know that needs more flour because I know the texture is off. You only get that though with experience. And sometimes you fail. Like I tell you, when I first started shooting this video 2 months ago, it was probably the third time I had made bread. The first 2 times were great, like it were today. But that third time on that video, it was horrible. Something, I don't remember what I changed, but I changed something and it did not go over well. And so that video I couldn't use. And so I said, you know what? Let me get good at this before I get a video. And so I feel like we are at that point. So I'm so happy to be able to share this with you today. I hope that somebody lands on this page, it's your first time, and that you find comfort and safety in following this recipe and following my instructions, and you have your own first loaf of bread that tastes really, really good. I'm always looking for that when I'm trying something new, and so I try to be that for other people who are looking on YouTube, just trying to find a recipe, trying to find a way to do it, and somebody who will take the time and explain and give all the tips and tricks. If you're that kind of person, so am I. If you've been doing fresh meal and maybe you don't have a good bread recipe, I ask you, go ahead and try this one and see if this is one that you and your family will love like we do. But y'all, what I'm about to do right now is go wrap up this bread. Hide one from my husband so that he don't think we got 2. Because if he think we got 2, he may just go ham. But if you only see 1 and it's already cut, then he may peter it out. He may meter it out. But y'all, definitely subscribe to the channel. The next fresh meal video that you'll see will be one on biscuits. I did record that. I just haven't put it out there yet because I wanted to put this one out there first. So definitely stay tuned for that. If you have questions about fresh meal flour, if you have questions about the grain meal, if I can answer it, I will be happy to. Remember, y'all, this is all a journey. Let's grow together. I'll see you next time, friend.